This coming weekend, the Handel and Haydn Society will celebrate peace and justice in free performances, drawing on Black and Jewish musical cultures. The program's called Every Voice, and the concerts will take place in Roxbury and the South End. To tell us about the program are its director, also performing is countertenor Reginald Mobley, and one of the other performers, bass-baritone Ian Pomerantz. Thank you both for being with us.
Thank you.
I want to start with Reginald. The idea for this concert, how did this come together exactly?
Well, really it came together, so the first performance, after Handel and Haydn partnered with the UUM, the University, Unitarian Universalist Urban Ministries program in Roxbury, who they run the First Church, the meeting house there in Roxbury. The first concert, we decided that we needed to do something that was focused on the coming Tuesday, because it just happened to be the Sunday before voting day in 2016. And seeing how terrible things were becoming with just so much disunion, I thought that maybe we should have some sort of concert that pulls us together, or at least suggests the idea of unity before we vote on this next presidential election. Obviously, the concert went well. Unfortunately, the voting day for many people did not. But the next year, they came, the meeting house staff came back to us and said, hey, let's do another concert next November. It was wonderful. And so that just happened to be in 2017, which was during the mayoral election in Boston. And I thought, well, let me try and figure out a tighter focus on Boston itself. And the idea is I wanted to focus on the same theme of unity and putting to flight the idea of disunity and separation, and look at Boston as a gestalt, or as a community, and the idea that we are a sum of parts, that we are greater as the whole than we are as separate little communities. But where I kind of divulge from the Pearl's Gestalt theorem is that I think that to better serve the whole, it would be nice to know and really understand the parts completely. And so we created the program, which is where 2017 was the beginning of the Every Voice project, where we focused on various aspects of the community of Boston. And we pull them apart in kind of vignette forms. I'm a Bach specialist and obsessed with Bach. So I thought, let's do 3 little vignettes in the style of Bach Cantata. So there's a chorus and then several arias and then a chorus at the end. And then in the center, where the sermon would be in Leipzig, in the Thomas Church, there's some sort of reading or letter or poetry or something spoken in the center of these little vignettes that really kind of talk to the spirit and idea of these communities in Boston. And they're usually read by guests from the community of Boston themselves.
Ian, you took part of the curating too, so what did you marshal?
This past year has been a really difficult time for the Jewish community in the United States, as well as a microcosm of the Jewish community in Boston. We've seen 2 major attacks on Jewish institutions that took many lives this year. Locally, Jewish communities have been vandalized. Our houses of worship have been vandalized. Students have come under increasing harassment at schools, and we even had a rabbi's house who was firebombed. So when Reggie said, I think that this community's voice is important, in conceptualizing the community that is Boston, I really jumped at the opportunity. I think it's really important. And furthermore, it allows us to stand shoulder to shoulder with another community in Boston that faces discrimination and violence every day. So what I try to do in my part is give a diverse and widespread view, cast a wide net of the many facets of the Jewish community and Jewish history as a part of the city, as central to Jewish Bostonian identity. We've been here the Jewish community has been in Boston for many years, from its earliest settlement, even though not at all necessarily prominent in the early years. It became prominent. It's now one of the most important centers of Jewish life in the United States. So I drew, taking Reggie's lead, I drew on the many different Jewish traditions, sort of many threads, and tried to weave them together into this tapestry of art. So we have Salomone Rossi. He was a Venetian Jewish composer who operated in the Venetian ghetto, which was where we get the word ghetto from, meaning a place where you can concentrate an ethnic minority in an urban context, where they're a part of the city but separate, and I wanted to show that as part of the history. And then we move to Levin Dosti. Levin Dosti was a German composer for the Reform movement in Berlin and Hamburg. And the story of his music is that he was, I won't say an assimilationist, but he believed that Jewish identity and secular German identity should not be conflicting, that they should go hand in hand. And he wrote very beautiful music, and one can trace his music as Jews got progressively pushed out of German life until World War II. And then we have Castelnuovo Tedesco, who was a wonderful composer of Sephardic Italian descent, who escaped to the United States when the fascist regimes took over, and had this wonderful output of music about his homeland and about his culture and about the surrounding cultures from which he drew inspiration. And I rounded out with Lezer Weiner, Yiddish songs. And Lezer Weiner was a composer, originally a refugee from Ukraine, and he took Yiddish art. He took Yiddish song to the level of art song. He thought that Yiddish should be a language that was a classical language.
And we'll bring up an excerpt of the Castelnuovo Tedesco, which is sung in Ladino.
This is sung in Ladino. We have several languages represented in this part of the program. We have English, of course. We have Hebrew, the ancient language of the Jewish people. We have Ladino, the language of the Sephardic diaspora, that is based in Spanish. And we have Yiddish, the language of the Ashkenazi diaspora, which is based in Old High German.
Roger, I want to ask you about things that might be more familiar to more of our viewers, which was the Old Negro Spirituals. At one time, I guess there was a period when even within the black community, people looked at this as sort of backward music. It's too simple to be interesting almost, and it was sort of rediscovered. And one person you're very preoccupied with here is Harry T. Burley. Tell us a little bit about him.
Well, Harry Burley, he was actually born a free man. He was born in 1866. His grandfather actually, he was able to purchase himself out of slavery, and he taught his grandson, Harry, and Harry's brother Reggie, not me. Trust me, I'm a little younger. He taught him all the old slave songs and spirituals, and he also taught him music because he had learned music while they were living up in the north. They moved to Pennsylvania and lived in New York as well. Harry Burley found himself at the National Conservatory, where he was given admittance with the help of the mother of Edward MacDowell. And while he was there, to help work his way through school, he kind of worked cleaning, the halls and sweeping up the auditorium and so forth. And while the time, he would sing all of the spirituals that he grew up learning and hearing and understanding as really just being, part of who he was. And it was Antonín Dvořák, the Czech composer, who just happened to be there, working there at the time, and heard him singing these spirituals, and he kind of would just follow him around and eventually just approached him and just said, "Sing me this." And he basically made Burley sing everything he knew. And Dvořák pretty much declared that this was American music. This was the great school, the great noble school of music. This is a true art form that was born here. And that really struck with Burley. And in his compositions, he kind of stuck to and kind of harkened back and created arrangements of these songs and spirituals, and saw this as almost in a way you would think of how a pearl is formed from an irritation in the oyster. Obviously, spirituals and slave songs came from a time of sorrow and ugliness, but the beauty that was left behind post slavery was something that could be shared and used as a salve to bring us together as Americans. This was something that we could share. For whatever reason, this music will heal and remind us that beauty can be formed anywhere. And he arranged many spirituals. He did many compositions outside of that, but that style remained a big part of him. And when he moved to New York after studying, and he ended up singing. He was apparently an incredible baritone. There's maybe one recording of him. I haven't heard it yet. But he would always sing spiritual arrangements that he did. And it kind of caught on like wildfire, like a brush fire in New York. Everyone at that time in the early 20th century would start to add spirituals to their recitals. And it just became this thing, this incredible music that was just something to share and create. And
there's more than we can possibly describe here. We should mention, if people want some more details, where can they get that, and exactly when and where would these concerts be on Saturday and Sunday?
So you can find more details at handelandhaydn.org. It's a free concert, but we do take reservations. You can just go and sign up online, and if you aren't able to find a ticket online, if you're unable to get online, just go to the door and say Reggie sent you. Say you're with the band, and that'll be fine. But the concert on Saturday is at the First Church in Roxbury at the Meeting House there at 3 p.m. And then on Sunday it's at Union Church on Columbus in Back Bay.
Thank you both very much, Reginald Mobley and Ian Pomerantz.